Now available on Tata Sky channel number 526.
Welcome back. You're watching the Urban Debate on Magic Bricks Now, India's first property channel. Thank you for staying with us. Well, home buyers have one reason to cheer. Prices of property in most of our major markets have either remained flat or corrected a little bit. But interestingly, the thing we've discovered this quarter is a massive gap between ready-to-move-in homes and under construction homes that seems to be getting wider. This is a new index by magicbricks.com that suggests that homes under construction are sharply cheaper than those ready to occupy. Does this in some way suggest that customers are no longer willing to take the risk? Ready to occupy homes are commanding a premium of sometimes 15% in markets across the country. I want to bring in our guests right now. Jayashree Kurup, who is the author of that report and that index. Thank you for joining us. Amit Goenka, Rohit Gera joins us from Pune, and Kuldeep Chawla. We're talking about top investment picks right now across the country and what the index is telling us about those picks. So what can we learn from it? If we pull up the national index, Jayashree, and this is an index that shows us how prices are moving across the country, it looks largely flat. Now, of course, we understand in the property market, if prices are not going up, if they're remaining stable, technically against inflation, those prices are actually coming down. That's the national index popping up on our screen right now, and our viewers will recognize two things from it. Thane and Chennai, which is the dark horse that's emerged this quarter, up 3% net across the city. Greater Noida is down 3.5%. The cities of Mumbai, Pune have remained largely flat. Bangalore is up 2%. Tell us what the country in general is looking like to you right now, Jayashree, from what you're reading on this index.
Faye, whichever markets the properties have not been delivered, consumers have put their money, but the property delivery has not taken place for a long time, the consumers are giving a thumbs down. Noida, Greater Noida are a clear example of what's happening. Consumers have been taken for granted. Project after project has been launched but not delivered. In many cases, even the work had not started. And that's why consumers are now very wary of purchasing in those markets. But if you look at what's happening in Thane, what's happening in Chennai, you will see that where there has been economic activity, and the other thing is that there is sufficient affordable, and by that I don't mean the social housing, I mean housing that is affordable to the common man, wherever that is available in sufficient quantities. Those are the markets that have done well. Chennai is a clear example. Hyderabad has not picked up, though the values are low, but Hyderabad has another set of problems. There is a lot of policy that needs to play out there. Otherwise, I would say that wherever markets where consumers can afford to buy, those are the ones where you are seeing some kind of a stability.
You know, I want to talk about this ready-to-move-in under construction comparison that we're looking at. And in your report, you said basically wherever there is a massive difference between the two, it means that confidence is very low. In developers. There's a crisis of confidence. Now, there are some cities where that difference is not so large. Pune, for example, if we pop that up on our screen, we'll see that the difference between under construction and ready to move in is not that large. Are you saying that, Pune has maybe a better confidence situation right now?
Certainly. I think in Pune and Bangalore, these are two cities where you did not see sharp spikes of price rise in either of these markets. These markets had one, job opportunities, two, the prices. There was no significant developer greed that we saw in the market, and as a result, there was no spike in prices. As a result, these markets have chugged along, and a lot of, if you look at the breakup of the properties, you will find a large percentage of property are in the up to 6,000 rupee 4,000 to about 6,000, and this means that it is catering to the end users. A market that caters to end users works.
I want to bring in Rohit Gera here. Rohit, you've been a stalwart of the Pune market for a really long time. I know that you're also considering Bangalore. You're also, have a very strong position right now in Goa as well. Is this what you're reading in the market also from both of these cities, that it's a stable market where there is still confidence in developers, there is still confidence in the market, there are still customers willing to come in and spend money?
Oh, Faye, absolutely. I think Bangalore and Pune have been I agree with Jayashree completely, have been stable markets. I don't think it's because developers are less greedy in this part of the country. We're all business people and we're happy to make more profits. I just think it's the dynamics of demand and supply. We have had a substantial amount of supply in the marketplace. There is a relatively high level of market information amongst developers. And as a result, I think people have not gotten carried away in raising their prices. But this is absolutely true. These are more stable markets from that point of view. And as a result, I think the gap, which is visible in terms of the under construction and the ready projects, clearly indicates that as well.
There has been a planned release of land in these markets. And that, the only way to control rising prices is to release more land and allow more development to happen.
I think also, what's beautiful about both of these markets, both Pune and Bangalore, is if we put up that pie chart one more time, and I want our viewers to get a second to actually look at it, we'll see that the supply is coming in, unlike other cities, in every range of the market. See, that's Pune right now. You'll see 5,000 rupees to 7,000 rupees. Over 50% of the supply that's coming up in that market is in the range of 5,000 to 7,000 rupees a square foot, which is where a large amount of the demand is as well. If we look at the same thing in Mumbai, you'll see that the actual demand where people can really afford it is coming in very small. Most of Mumbai's supply is priced between 16,000 upwards, which is where it comes into that whole 1.5 CR, 2 CR bracket, where a lot of people can't afford. Again, even in Chennai, 3,000 rupees to 5,000 rupees a square foot, according to magicbricks.com, is where a lot of the supply is coming in. And that's really where the demand is as well. Amit Goenka, when you look at these markets right now, what's the most interesting to you from an investment point of view? For our viewers watching at home, where would which city do you think is the most attractive at this point?
First of all, obviously, absorption numbers are the most relevant to convert asset into cash. And obviously, all of us look at cash flows before we make any investment decisions. It's obvious, and we've stated in the past, that we look at Chennai now as the next best destination to potentially invest for the next 3 to 5 years. Pune, I would still be a little cautious because a lot of land has been released, while now supply has been coming up more in the affordable segment, whether it is more towards Hinjewadi or more towards the Chakan belt. But however, a lot of the valuations have actually gone up in the heart of Pune, so which was the average 6,000 to 7,000 have started going more towards the 9,000 to 10,000 mark, and which is really where people were looking to stay, which is where people were actually willing to come and buy for the long term, as opposed to more rental type housing, which is getting built on the outskirts of the city. So I'm going to continue to watch Pune a little cautiously, given the factors that there's been a lot of supply which did come up, and obviously the differential is not very large. As investors, clearly it's important that there must be a large premium.
You actually think the Pune market is going to slow down now?
Well, actually, one of the things which is very important for investors, because the risk that one is taking from an under construction to a delivered project is actually quite massive. You're taking approval, you're taking construction, you're taking sales risk, and if the delta is not large enough, which means the upside for the investor to actually come in, put the money at the under construction project and therefore make that upside upon exit is not really vibrant, which means that the flow of capital would gradually start coming off these markets where the delta is not very large.
Amit, I'm going to keep this. One second, Rohit, one second. I just want to explain to our viewers what they're looking at right now. This is the Pune City Price Index over the last 2 years, from September 2013 to where we are right now. If we used September 2013 as 100, we're currently at 110. So we're looking at over 2 years, a 10% uptick across the whole city, which, Amit, is fantastic given the market that we see. One of the highest, right?
One of the highest in the country today.
The highest in the country today. So look at the fact that unlike the other cities that we've looked at, we haven't seen an up and down, up and down, up and down. It's a steady uptick.
Faye, it is an end user market.
It's an end user market.
The reason why this market has been stable, as also Bangalore, is because this has been an end user market. It is not so much driven. I mean, the percentage of people who come in as investors into this market has been much less than most other Mumbai, Delhi, and so on.
Rohit, you do a lot of research in the city of Pune as well. Are you also seeing a fairly strong end-user market? Would you want to challenge Amit there on the fact that he doesn't believe Pune still has any more juice to deliver?
No, Sophia, I don't agree with him at all. But I think the way to look at this is a little bit different. If you look across the country, you'll see and you look at this report, you'll see about half the cities have moved up, half the cities have moved down. If you go within the cities, you'll see about half the locations, or depending on which city it is, some localities have moved up in price and some have actually gone down in price. Even within a locality, you'll see some developers have seen price rises and some have seen price drops. So I don't agree with saying that you take one brush and you paint an entire city and say all of Chennai will do well or all of Pune won't do well. I don't subscribe to that school of thought at all. You have to be smart, you have to pick the right location, you have to pick the right developer.
All right,
may I tell you what we've done with this prop index? When we redid the prop index, one of the things we did was, if you are paying X amount of rent in a locality, we said, what is your EMI if you were to buy in that same locality? In most of the cases, we find that if you were to buy into that locality, you may not be able to afford. Therefore, what happens is people buy a little cheaper housing away from the city, but they choose to stay on rent in these premium localities. The premium localities never drop. Every city has premium localities which are priced more than the rest of the city. However, since India is a growing market, you are seeing a lot of peripheral development and places where you can afford to buy. So you have to be a realistic investor when it comes to real estate.
Now I want to bring in Kuldeep Chawla, who's been very quiet on the show up till now. Kuldeep, when you look at investment options in Pune, and I want to understand which side of the argument you fall into. Amit Goenka believing that Pune will not give us the kind of returns we've seen up till now. It's going to slow down. Rohit and Jayashree both arguing that because it's an end-user driven market, it will continue to chug along at the nice, stable, steady pace that we've seen it give us over the last 3 years.
Okay, let me add my 2 bits to this conversation and debate. I think real estate is a very local market. To that extent, I agree with Mr. Gera completely. And this is true even within localities. So if you go within west or eastern part of any city, you will find this to be true. We look at 3 broad things at Milestone. Number 1, developer partner. Number 2, infrastructure, employment, project location. Number 3, pricing. I think all 3 things have been talked about. But I think, if you were to specifically look at Pune, I think you'll find there are windows of opportunity in a Chakan, even in an Aundh, But you have to find, like somebody said earlier, the right location, the right size of project, the right product mix, the right development partner. Pune has a couple of things going for it, broadly speaking. May not be true of every developer or every location. Number 1, I think by and large, and data bears this out, that execution speed of developers by and large is the fastest in Pune compared to other cities. Number 2, along with Bangalore, I think you have many more end users. Again, I'm painting everything with one broad brush, but I think you will see some variations, but by and large that is true. So you have affordability, you have options, you have jobs.
Right. Kuldeep, tell me this, for someone making an investment right now.
On the flip side,
Kuldeep, for someone making an investment right now, what neighborhood in Pune would you recommend?
Depending on where you want to be, Chakan, Yerwada, Hadapsar, Aundh. And within that, for example, if somebody can give me 70% of Pune's market is an all-inclusive price of less than 1 crore. I don't know. I don't know if that data is readily available for your viewers, but if Jayashree or somebody can pull that out, you'll find that at least our research indicates that.
Right. So
those are the 4 or 5 markets that I would pick.
Let's take a look at those markets specifically. Jayashree, which are the markets that you've seen the most growth in when it comes to Pune? If we break it up right now, of course, the new PCMC areas are seeming very interesting in terms of price appreciation, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Pune, but when you look at the Pune market, I would say that the best appreciation is in those areas where there is economic drivers. You have seen around the Hinjewadi area, around the Chakan area, there is a lot of demand there, and these are the areas which have given steady returns to investors. So I would say that these are good investment picks.
All right, so these are good in investment picks. Amit Goenka, same question. I know you're a little bearish right now in the Pune market,
No,
but still there might be one or two markets that still getting
certainly.
your attention.
We've never denied the fundamentals. We always state that Pune obviously enjoys the extension of Mumbai, and obviously it's much more affordable than what a Mumbai would provide. We're just saying that if you were to extrapolate, the current demand versus supply patterns, and you see that the supply obviously is outstripping the demand, and therefore there is a bit of flattishness which has emerged in much of the markets. Like Hinjewadi obviously is now seeing, from flattishness to a little bit of a subdued price points, and clearly, obviously, there's been an overbuild in the entire Chakan Talegaon belt, but clearly, that's something again we're waiting and watching. So we've maintained that Pimpri, Chinchwad, Talegaon, Chakan remains the belt to watch out for, simply because the bases were low, and anyway, if the bases have been low, then clearly, if they have to average out the 4,000 to 4,500 sort of a price point from about 3,500 today towards Talegaon, Chakan, or more towards 6,000 for the Pimpri Chinchwad, then clearly there's an upside to be made in that belt for sure. Again, of course, Pashan, Aun, Baner have seen an extension emerge around these core markets, which have therefore brought the price down from these micro markets from being in the average of 7,000 to maybe 6,500 thereabouts. Therefore, the extensions of these, of these very, very infill locations.
Right, I'm going to ask my producer. I'll ask my producer to actually fire the prices of the locations.
I'd just like to...
Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Kuldeep. So we'll take a look at the prices of Chakan, Pimpri Chinchwad, Talegaon, and a couple of other neighborhoods in Pune. Yeah, go ahead, Kuldeep, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make two quick points. I think, whatever micro markets you're looking at, given that Pune is a sort of value for money, less than 1 crore sizable market, I think you have to look at three things. Number one, you have to look at affordability. Number two, you have to look at what the demand-supply equation is. And number three, you have to look at what the size of the market is. With the second way of looking at this is, and I'm sure there's data available either now or we could do it on another show, which is that you have to look at, within the demand-supply kind of equation, you then have to look at, what is your stock of inventory vis-a-vis, where the demand is. And you have to look at quarter to sell and those sorts of things to tell you, which markets are going to be more attractive. Right. And that's the reason I was picking certain micro markets.
Right, fair enough. Rohit Gira, before we take a break, do you agree with the picks for Pune, Chakan, Pimpri Chinchwad, Talegaon, or do you, I know that you're personally building in other neighborhoods. Tell us where you see the potential.
So, Faye, I think if one looks at eastern-western corridor, one has to keep in mind your investment time horizon and your risk appetite. So, if you want to go into something which is, let's say, a 2 to 3 year horizon, I still think a location like Hinjewadi or Wagholi are really good bets, because we're going to see a lot more IT development come up in these two areas. 3 years out from now, with the whole SEZ counter which is in place for 2020, you'll have a lot more job creation in these two areas. So if you have a 2.5, 3 year horizon, I would pick a Wagholi, Hinjewadi. If you have a slightly earlier time frame, then I would come inside one layer and come in maybe into a Baner or a Kharadi, east, west Pune. And if you want something which is, if you can afford something higher, then of course there's Kalyani Nagar and Aund. So it really depends, I think, on investment horizon. That's a really important aspect to keep in mind. But my locations, these are my 6 picks along 2 corridors.
Rohit called out everything other than Boat Club Road, didn't he?
All right. I didn't come to Boat Club Road. It actually went down. I think prices in Boat Club Road were overinflated. They've come down. The only other thing is in the outskirts. It's really important to look at the track record of the developer. There are a lot of fly-by-night operators who've started up with small projects, and these are going to see a lot of challenge with the real estate regulator coming in time. So be a little cautious about that as well.
Anywhere you want to invest, and the reason why we're bringing this up is because magicbricks.com has an index. It's a prop index, and the idea with this index is to use the data that's coming out of the market right now to be able to pick the right investment options. We have to talk about the city of Mumbai. Now, I have a couple of arguments against investing in Mumbai, one of which is poor management of the city, the fact that job creation is moving to cities like Bangalore and Pune, that Mumbai just has not kept up in so many different ways. Now, Mumbai used to be the strongest property market in the country. It's losing that space, that position very, very quickly. If we look at the index right now, it shows us that Mumbai has actually moved up less than 1% in the last quarter, losing out to cities like Bangalore, losing out to cities like Chennai at this point, and also to Thane. Jayashree, the city of Mumbai, the island city, is it no longer what it used to be?
No, it's not. And one of the biggest reasons is that any infrastructure project that has come up in the city of Mumbai, and it's got plenty of funds being poured into the city, it has just not taken off. After the Mumbai floods, the amount of money that was given to the city, you have nothing to show for the amount of money that came in. And today, the earlier debate that you had about the dump yard fire, clearly there's total lack of governance here, and that's reflecting in property values. I truly believe that property values are an indicator of governance or the lack of it, and in Mumbai, it is the lack of governance that is clearly reflected in the falling property values.
You know, I want to ask Amit Goenka this question. We talked about, when we talked about Pune and Bangalore, we talked about the fact that it's an end-user driven market. Now, my problem with the island city of Mumbai, we're not talking about Thane and Navi Mumbai here, is that the end users cannot afford this market at all. Nobody who works in this city, no salaried person who works in this city can afford to buy a home. It's ridiculously priced. It's priced outside of the range of the people who live here. How is it ever going to move in any direction other than downwards?
Well, Mumbai has always traditionally been like that phase. So whether you look at the price index now versus the GDP or the PPP of the per capita income, it's always been slightly out of reach of the common man. However, it's also therefore been led by investors who've gone and bought property for the long term, and therefore almost 40% of the home supply has been absorbed by investors who actually end up renting the homes in hope of a higher capital appreciation over a period of time.
But I mean, the rental yields are also abysmal in Mumbai. They're less than 2%, which is perhaps the lowest rental yields in the country, and that's because the investors keep lapping up the supply and, inflating the price, isn't it?
Well, no doubt that the rental yields tend to be within 2 to 4% typically across the country.
Jayashree, what are the rental yields in Mumbai? Less than 2%.
1.8 to about 2.5.
They're nowhere near 4%, in fact. 4% is for cities like Bangalore and Pune, where the job creation is actually happening. It's not happening in Mumbai, Amit.
No, certainly. And therefore, if you look at it, so we've done this study where we looked at certain very high-end properties and said, all right, you bought a property, let's say in the heart of Mumbai way back in 2010, and that time it cost you something like 25,000 was the capital value. Today it's hovering to 42,000. So a lot of the appreciation has actually happened in Mumbai. Mumbai tends to be the only city which has continued to give high appreciation over a period of time, and therefore rental yields haven't really mattered that much.
To defy economics over a period of time, I suppose, in that case.
Well, yes, maybe it's a maximum city. It tends to obviously appreciate higher and faster compared to any other city within the metropolis regions of the country. And so nearly a large part of the investment that goes in is definitely investor consumption, which tends to then obviously lease out or rent out to people who can't afford but need to obviously work and stay in Mumbai. And obviously that dynamics, I think, will continue over a period of time. As far as the capital appreciation is concerned, obviously the island city obviously now
if you're convinced about the island city of Mumbai, tell us what neighborhoods you're convinced about.
Well, obviously Chembur did really well, of course, now with the dumping ground and so many other issues.
Do you think that will affect the price of homes?
I don't deny it. It certainly will.
I mean, I'll tell you why Chembur has done well, and we all know this is because the Eastern Freeway opened up and connected Chembur to town. The fact that the Santa Cruz Chembur Link Road opened up and connected it to BKC and to the western side. Now the Deonar dump yard is on fire. Do you think it will offset the infrastructure, or is the city of Mumbai so hungry for infrastructure right now that we will overlook the fire and Chembur will continue to do well?
You'll forget the fire very soon. 6 months, give it 6 months, you'll forget the fire. This is public memory is very short, and right now, while everybody is very agitated about it, once the fire is doused, the life carries on. And the infrastructure and the transport connectivity is always a driver.
Is the only thing that
yes,
matters.
Absolutely. Having said that, of course, Chembur obviously has moved from a very, very low base of almost 13 to 14,000 to almost about 18, 19,000.
Okay, so Chembur, we'll come back. I'll come back and get the rest of your picks. Bricks. I want to bring in Kuldeep and Rohit here as well. Rohit, from where you're looking at the Mumbai market and from the other markets that you operate in, do the numbers add up for you as a developer?
Look, Faye, I think you have to look at a metropolis like Mumbai, financial capital of the country. And I know your argument will be the infrastructure is horrible, but that notwithstanding, compare it to other similar large cities in the world. London, New York, Tokyo, all have prices, and the same argument which you made, who is it affordable for, applies for these cities as well. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing to keep in mind is, look, on one hand, I think I heard Jayashree say there's no governance, or I heard you say that, and things are really horrible. I don't tend to agree, because you've also in your next segment turned around and said that there has been road transport infrastructure which has come in. So I think things need to improve, there's no doubt about it. But I don't agree, and looking at it from the outside, I certainly don't believe that there is a complete breakdown of everything, because if that was the case, you wouldn't have a 1% appreciation, you'd have a 30% depreciation in prices.
Rohit, the projects that came up in the last 1.5 years were all roughly 5 to about 15 years.
Projects, yes. Delayed
projects.
Delayed repeatedly.
Yes, you've seen some projects get off the ground, and that's a big plus, which is reflected in the 1% rise in values. But what you've also seen is that because of this, like any other big city, the heart is very expensive.
In comparison, if the normal comparison between Mumbai and any other city tends to be New York, and the lack of infrastructure, we don't have a New Jersey. High-speed connectivity has kept the prices high, because the island has not been connected to anything else. So the prices on the island have remained high, haven't they, Jayashree?
Yes, and anyone who stays in Navi Mumbai, anyone who stays in Thane and had to come into town till these 2 or 3 projects got off the ground had a miserable time of it, because like I said, Chembur will continue to see rising values, because any transport connectivity, good transport connectivity, is always welcome for people who will stay further away from the expensive areas.
Because the city is so starved for transport connectivity. Kuldeep Chawla, what's your take on the city of Mumbai? Do you consider any of the neighborhoods still neighborhoods of promise? I know that you're deploying a lot of your investments into Bangalore right now. Are you deploying anything into Mumbai?
So let me first say this, that that subdued supply has kept Mumbai's island city prices resilient or high. That's point number one. Point number two is that the western and central suburbs have benefited from the metro as well as from the eastern freeway, and the upcoming Metro 2 and Metro 3, which are simultaneous, as well as the employment opportunities in the western and central suburbs, as well as their increased acceptance as residential markets, make the western and central suburbs, along with Thane, potentially attractive opportunities. We are, in fact, indeed deploying capital even in Mumbai. We're doing it with a great degree of care. And most of our focus is western and central suburbs and Thane.
Yep. Also tell me this, Kuldeep, what locations are you deploying that very cautious investment into in Mumbai?
So, like I said, western suburbs, Andheri, Goregaon, central suburbs, Ghatkopar, Thane, Mulund.
Okay. And what sort of construction is this? Is this mid-range? Is this high-end? Is this affordable?
All mid-range, all mid-range. I think all-inclusive pricing of less than 2 crores.
All-inclusive prices of... all right, so yes.
Yeah, so we're looking, 2.5 crores would be the sort of peak that we would look at.
All right, so 2.5 crores. On your screen right now, you're looking at the prices of Ghatkopar East, of Chembur. We'll put that on your screen as well. These are neighborhoods to consider. Jayashree, where are you seeing the most action when it comes to Mumbai? Ghatkopar East up nearly 30% in this market. And that's because of the two roads that we talked about. And also Ghatkopar will get the metro eventually. That will cross over to the east side. Right now, Ghatkopar being connected to Andheri. While that is good infrastructure, it's infrastructure that came in far too late, which is why we're seeing that spike at this point. What are you seeing on your numbers, Jayashree?
We still see, actually, Faye, a lot of the smaller investments have moved to Thane, and Thane is is an area which has seen a rise in values over the 2-year period. If you look at Mumbai, I think Mumbai we would also support the Ghatkopar, Chembur, places that have had high-speed connectivity and linkages to the mother city. These are the areas which have maximum potential right now.
Right. Also in the index, we saw Thane do really, really well. Now, Thane has gone up about 3.2%, if I'm not mistaken, the highest in the country. Jayashree, neighborhoods within Thane, because Thane is massive. If we were to say Thane is doing well, where in Thane are you actually seeing that action?
We're seeing a lot of action in the Mira Road area. The affordability has been the biggest driver in Thane, and we see that we're seeing a shift in the commercial district to Thane. Anything that is easy to commute to from the commercial district, those are the locations where we're seeing a lot of
Is it job creation? This is the question for all of our panelists right now. We've seen...
Faye, I'd like to add a couple of things.
Yes, Kuldeep, go ahead.
I think Thane is a very interesting market. It's in the public domain that we've done something there. We're looking at a bunch of other things, and I think what we like about Thane is three things. Number one, as Jayashree said, is employment. Number two is access and connectivity, and number three is the fact that Thane has increasingly become a neighborhood of choice. Certainly the start of Ghodbandar Road, and other parts of Thane have become a hub of choice. So much so that people are actually selling their 1 BHKs and 2 BHKs, closer to the city and moving to Thane for quality of life.
Right.
And that's one part. The other part I want to make very clear to viewers is something that, people shouldn't just look at micro markets and look at employment and infrastructure and connectivity. I think when you look at a project, there are two other things which I think one of the other speakers earlier today said. Number one is to do with the developer, his track record, his customer centricity, timely execution, quality, so on and so forth. The second is to do with social infrastructure, and I think that's where Thane is beginning to look very good. Schools, hospitals, because people, we're human beings. We're, man likes to live in neighborhoods. We're seeing increasingly people seeking amenities, social infrastructure, healthcare, education, entertainment, so on and so forth.
Right. Those are great, lists that Kuldeep just gave us. And I also want to talk about job creation. One of the reasons why we're seeing Thane become so interesting is because it's becoming a hub for the IT market. Now, all of the other markets that we've seen do well over the last few years, whether it's Bangalore, Pune, micro markets within Bangalore and Pune, or Hyderabad in this particular case, have all been because of the IT, ITES, BFSI markets that come up and create jobs there. Hirandani Estate, for example, will have one of the largest TCS offices that will be set up. Amit Goenka, is that if I just follow the IT market or the BFSI market, will I find good residential markets as well?
Well, one is to assume that there's a very strong correlation between job creation as well as the residential prices that eventually erupt in these locations. However, one of the challenges, which has also been the problem of larger landmass areas like Bangalore, Pune, has been the stability of prices. Thane has seen a certain amount of pressure on prices because of the huge amount of inventory creation that has been happening over the last 5 years. You see, on an average, most projects having over 500 units to 800 units each in each of the projects, which is obviously a situation of oversupply, and it's it's obviously extended, on the Nasik highway. It's extended towards Ghodbunder Road. It's extended towards the national park. So it's really been an all-round development. So certainly it is a good market for an end consumer. But however, one is spoiled for choice. How much absorption can happen in a particular micro market still remains to be seen, and that obviously becomes a concern for an investor.
I also want to talk, since we're talking about IT, we're talking about micro markets. I want to slip in Bangalore. We've seen Bangalore do really well, and all of the arguments that we made for the city of Pune in the beginning of the show, the fact that it's a steady, stable end-user market, it has a lot of job creation, still getting the lion's share of the demand in the commercial property market. If we look at that, it's a fair amount of seesawing that happened as well in Bangalore in 2014, but 2015 seems to have run very, very strong. Jayashree, Bangalore is still a great, solid market to invest in?
Bangalore's 5,000 to 8,000 rupee market is extremely stable and we're running well. The luxury market, the premium luxury market, where there is a huge oversupply compared to demand, that's not doing quite so well. So if I were to just put the luxury market here, you would see a lot more seesawing in 2015 as well. But we do consider that we've had the best commercial take-up in the year 2015 across cities yet. It's one of the best years for commercial take-up. There is a lag of 1 to 1.5 years, and across cities you are going to see a lot of the impact of that commercial development in the residential markets. Also, every city has a huge amount of infrastructure coming up. In Delhi is the city that's seen a 22% drop in prices over the last 2.5 years. But if you look at what's happening, the Delhi Metro has 3-4 lines coming up. The minute the metro comes up, you're going to see a lot of take-up within the mother city itself, and it's going to change the dynamics. So properties are such a interconnected, interrelated business that one needs to constantly study the market and not go by perceived.
Okay, I want responses from the rest of the panel as well. Rohit Gera, the city of Bangalore.
Look, I think completely agree. There's been a tremendous offtake in the ITES space, the largest ever. I completely agree with Jayashree. So that's going to continue to need people. There's going to see increased migration coming in, more job creation, and people need places to live. So you may first start seeing starter homes. You may see rental home offtake take off, but eventually, a couple of years into the job, everybody aspires to own a home. So I think Bangalore, in the medium long term, is still really looking very good to us.
All right, Bangalore is looking good. Kuldeep, Bangalore is your market of choice at this point. When and you've also received some great exits from the city of Bangalore, which means that not only have you made strong investments, you've managed to actually sell in this market, which is the tough part for most investors. Tell us what neighborhoods you're focusing on.
So I think, before I go to Bangalore, if I may take the liberty of just making a very quick comment in response to what somebody said about Thane. It's very interesting. Mr. Gera said, don't paint everything with one brush. And I love that comment because it might surprise many viewers, but you'll be surprised to know that the 1 to 1.5 crore ticket size in Thane has relatively more supply than demand compared to products which are more than 1.5 crores. Right. So why is that? That's because people are actually preferring to do the 2 and 3 BHKs in Thane as opposed to the 1 BHK. So I just want to make the very quick point that, don't paint everything with one brush.
Right.
Moving back to Bangalore, I think what we like about Bangalore is the south and southeast quadrant, which is where the employment opportunities are, but also where you see 2 types or 3 types of products come about. Number one is the affordable row house. The average Bangalorean loves his 30, 40, 40, 60 plot with a ground plus 1, ground plus 2 at most. The second product that we are seeing is the value for money, 4, 5, 6,000 rupees, all inclusive, home that the community loving Bangalorean loves. You can look at markets of Sarjapur, Whitefield, Marathali, HSR layout, JP Nagar. So broadly that quadrant, is what we like. Again, driven by affordability, options, jobs. I just want to add, one layer of caution for all of those who look at just the IT thing. I think, we look very carefully at some trends, and I think whilst they're not big trends right now, we're very conscious of the fact that, a lot of the 45 and 50-year-olds are not getting hired, but it's the 30-year-olds that are getting hired, or the 35-year-olds that are getting hired, and that has implications for the types of homes people buy.
Right.
That's the first thing. The second thing is that, again, it's not a trend, but we got to be cautious of the fact that a 20% growth in IT revenues doesn't mean a linear growth in employment opportunities, because productivity might be going up, right? But there is a reasonable size manufacturing sort of base in and around Bangalore, but that has implications for the types of homes people buy.
Okay, this is the interesting thing, and I want to point this out to our viewers. Sarjapur Road up 26% in 2 years. Mardahalli up 44% in 2 years. We haven't seen these numbers on any of the other cities we talked about up till now. So Bangalore is still showing a fair amount of strength when it comes to pure property markets, and the reasons why we're interested in it. We're running out of time. Two more cities, areas we have to talk about: the NCR region and, of course, Hyderabad, which I personally find very interesting. Jayashree, the NCR region, and your report also showed that the entire north is sort of dragging its feet on the rest of the country, dragging the national average down as well. Look at that NCR region. From 100, if we placed September 13 at 100, we're currently at 78. And the NCR plagued with so many problems of delivery, problems of developers having to go to jail, spending a lot of time in court, very, very low confidence among consumers. We talk to them every day. This is the Noida City Index. It's all looking the same right now. We're going to put up Gurgaon as well. Overall decline in prices to various degrees, but decline nevertheless. Jayashree?
Faye, there are two things you have to consider. The Delhi city had outpriced itself, and very much like Mumbai city,
right.
It was beyond the buying capacity of a lot of Delhiites. And unlike Mumbai, where you had to go very far and travel very huge distances, Delhi being a spatial city, radial city, what really happened was people had Gurgaon, Noida, Faridabad, Ghaziabad, other options, and it was still part of the NCR. And the metro connecting all these cities did help tremendously, because you could travel within the NCR. So what you've actually seen was that a lot of people made a beeline towards Gurgaon, Noida, and so on.
Jayashree, tell us this. Do you believe there'll be any sort of trigger for change in what we're looking at on our screen right now?
Absolutely. I see
is?
Delhi Metro is going to be the single biggest driver for Delhi city. The city of Delhi. And where you've seen a drop down to 79, I think that is poised to change in the next year and a half as more take-up happens. Also, there is a redevelopment.
Focus around the metro regions. Wherever the metro will have a station,
yes.
I should be around that.
If you look at what Delhi Metro has done, it's identifying its influence areas around the city where any kind of development will need a Delhi Metro buy-in as well.
Okay, I have two more cities I must talk about, and I want our panelists, all of the panelists, to choose between the two. There's the city of Hyderabad, and we're seeing a lot of action right now around the IT areas of Hyderabad. So Madhapur, Gachibowli, anything around high-tech city is seeing some action. On the other hand, the city of Chennai. Chennai has actually grown stronger than any other city. It's a complete dark horse. We weren't expecting that at all. Amit Goenka, Hyderabad or Chennai, where would you put your money if these were your only two choices?
Certainly Chennai. I think Hyderabad is still a while away before it actually regains our confidence and the confidence of the investors. But Chennai, I think, continues to show resilience. It's obviously led by a very strong IT story, which seems to have a re-emergence built onto it. So I would still
manufacturing in Chennai
and
as
manufacturing,
well. Yes.
of course, it's a very diversified city.
Rohit Gera, if I asked you to choose between Hyderabad and Chennai for your next project, which one would you choose?
For our next project, I would do Chennai. So long term, greater risk, greater returns would be Hyderabad. More stable, more steady would be Chennai. That's how I would look at it. If I was putting my own money in to buy an apartment, it would be in Pune.
This should remind our viewers that Rohit Gera is personally quite biased to the city of Pune. Kuldeep Chawla, Hyderabad or Chennai?
Chennai, for the reasons that Rohit and to a lesser extent Amit said. But I would say this. I would watch Hyderabad, for the next year and a half, look at what's happening on the employment side, look at whether the reduction in supply is actually driving prices up in Hyderabad, which is what I think is happening right now. And that's the reason I'd stay away from Hyderabad in the short term.
Okay, we have to wrap up the show, but Jayashree, generally in Hyderabad, there's some gorgeous supply coming up.
Also, I would say one other thing, which I said earlier.
Yes, Kuldeep, go ahead.
There's one other reason why I picked Chennai. You know, Chennai is a much more homogeneous market. It has some manufacturing and services beyond IT, whereas Hyderabad is much more dependent on IT. So, you know, depending on what view we want to take on the world markets and on leasing activities, so on and so forth, you know, I'd be a little bit more careful about Hyderabad. Hyderabad is likely to be more volatile.
Jayashree, Chennai or Hyderabad?
Chennai, and something that we haven't considered so far, Hyderabad is going to get the newly evolving Andhra Pradesh is going to give Hyderabad a run for its money.
Do you think it's taken some time to get off the block, though?
Yes, it has. But I think the way it is being planned, and it's a study in how city planning should be. So I think though they've taken a while, they've got their piece right. And I think if Hyderabad doesn't get its policy structure right, Hyderabad may lose out to the newly evolving
Simandra. 4 for 4 for Chennai there. Everybody votes Chennai over Hyderabad, although Hyderabad does remain, interesting. Remember, while I wrap up this show, and I'd like to thank all 4 of our panelists for being with us this evening. We talked about various cities, but the most interesting emerging, again, Bangalore and Pune remain the most interesting cities to invest in. Lots of strong supply, good developers, good track record, end users who still want to buy in that market. So if you're making an investment from anywhere in the country, Bangalore and Pune are the cities to consider. Coming up after that, Chennai and Thane. Jayashree and the rest of the gentlemen, thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. On Magic Bricks Now, we'll continue to track this index for you and we'll learn from it to make smarter investments. Thank you for watching.
You can watch live TV on our website mbnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/magicbricksnow. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magic Bricks Now. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/magicbricksnow.